thought that they had a lot of momentum. Even when some early returns were coming in, there were encouraging messages coming from the SB campaign, but it did not work out their way. He wound up conceding to Cindy Hyde-Smith earlier than they had scheduled for the call, and then he went and told his supporters about it like this.
A minute ago, I did call Senator Cindy Hyde-Smith, and no, and I congratulated her on her victory tonight, and she has my prayers as she goes to Washington to unite a very divided Mississippi.
Because of that call, Cindy Hyde-Smith was able to take the stage sooner than she had been planning. She just walked off, and normally a speech like that, you're saying thanks to the supporters in the hotel ballroom that are listening to you, but her speech had some of that. It was mostly, though, saying thanks to President Trump for all of the support, for the 2 rallies that he had yesterday, and for the ride on Air Force One. She said that she's already going back to Washington at 4:30 in the morning tomorrow to get back to work. She, of course, was appointed by Governor Phil Bryant to, once Senator Thad Cochran left the seat for health reasons, now she will be able to fill out the rest of his term until 2020. She just told that all the controversy and the chaos surrounding her campaign did not make her any less likely to want to run in 2020. She said that Mississippi voters know her, and that's why they voted for her. And something really interesting the Governor Bryant said while he was introducing her, he said he thinks that all of the stories, all of the bad press, all of these unearthed hot mic moments that were coming out where she was making jokes about public hanging or jokes about disenfranchising college voters, he said that all of that motivated Republicans to go out and vote, that they did not want the national press to tell them how they were supposed to vote, how they were supposed to live. And of course the result tonight tracked almost exactly with what the Hyde-Smith campaign had been telling me all night they thought it was going to be. Shannon?
All right, Peter Ducey live on the ground in Mississippi. Thank you very much. Well, now let's bring in Fox News politics editor of the Halftime Report, Chris Steyerwalt, for bits of analysis. Good to see you, sir.
Ma'am.
Okay, so let's talk about the fact that we talked about this on election night, that not only does the GOP have now a wider margin in the Senate, but some of the most anti-Trump or not super friendly with the president voices who were Republicans are now gone. How does this shift the feeling of the Senate, you think?
Well, Mitt Romney's there. There's not a lot of pushover. There Ben Sass, who you talked to, certainly not a pushover. The president, when it comes to appointments, especially when we're talking about replacing the Attorney General, Susan Collins, Lindsey Graham have both voiced serious concerns about the way the president has taken a very soft tack with Saudi Arabia over the murder of that journalist. He still has to feed the bulldog.
But does he have a little bit more of a margin when it comes to, say, judicial nominees? Especially, there's plenty of speculation about when that may happen again with the Supreme Court. There are plenty of lower court judges feeding through the system as well. It was really tough for them having to worry about Senators Collins and Murkowski because of their pro-choice views. Now it seems he's got a little bit more of a buffer.
I don't want to take anything away from Susan Collins' pro-choice views, but that didn't prove to be a great impediment in the past. That wasn't a giant stumbling block. These have been very conservative judges. I have every expectation that in the new Senate that they will continue to be able to get a lot of judges through and remake the federal judiciary in a profound way.
All right, I want to play something that we heard from President Obama out speaking tonight, and he was a big voice in this Mississippi race. He did these recorded calls for Mike Espy saying, my name's not on the ballot, but the future of this country is. The president obviously being down there twice yesterday. Here is what President Obama is saying tonight about our current political environment.
It's based on a nationalism that's not pride in country, but hatred for somebody on the other side of the border. And you start getting the kind of
mà thầy giáo không giờ được cấm tay học sinh cho nên học sinh không biết.
Politics that does
Kể mà thầy giáo mà được cấm tay học sinh có nên coi như.
So listen, he got really involved in the midterms. Just a couple of years before he's out there.
It might have worked in Mississippi if the Republicans were thinking about Chris McDaniel. He's a state senator down there. On his way out, you Espy is way out there. If they had nominated him, I bet Mike Espy could have won tonight. But they nominated Cindy Hyde-Smith, who's a rather moderate, former Democrat, former state ag commissioner.
But full embrace of President Trump. I mean, he's going to count this definitely as a win in his column.
Well, sure, but I will also say, if you can't win it, if you're a Republican, you can't win in Mississippi. You can't win. The Republicans chose the better course. They won a seat, maybe not by as big of a margin as they would have hoped, but a win is a win.
Pretty convincing.
Well, I mean,
the president won by 20 points there. This looks, at the last year, more like 10 points.
So Mississippi is an astonishingly racially divided state. Almost all of the Democrats, or almost all of the black voters are Democrat. Almost all of the white voters now are Republicans, and it's 60% white state. So almost every election is 60-40 Republican to Democrat. So Democrats can feel good that they outperformed. And I bet when we go through the numbers, we'll see substantial black turnout, and she underperformed in the suburbs a little bit. But a win is a win, and the expected outcome occurred, and the Republicans can get on with life.
Well, we can't with the Senate. I know there's some still House stuff dangling around out there, but that will be resolved at some point. In the meantime, Chris, thank you for stopping in.
You bet.
Good to see you. All right, tonight, General Motors is not backing down from its plan to shutter several plants, and the president says there will be consequences. China standing firm as well ahead of a major meeting on trade and tariffs. But the president's team says it's the U.S. that has all the leverage going into that. So all of this turning into a key test for President Trump's brand of economic nationalism. So tonight we go to correspondent Kristen Fisher for more. Good evening, Kristen.
Good evening, Shannon. What we're seeing is President Trump really going all in on his America First economic strategy in China with tariffs and now with General Motors. He's threatening to cut all federal subsidies for GM if the company moves forward with its plan to stop production at 4 plants in the United States and cut nearly 15,000 jobs.
Holiday season layoffs from GM, brutal, all right? Very disappointing.
President Trump's top economic advisor says his boss feels betrayed by the largest automaker in the United States. First the bailout in 2008, GM saved from bankruptcy by U.S. taxpayers, and then the new North American trade agreement, which the White House believes was a big boost for the U.S. auto industry. The president said today, the U.S. saved General Motors, and this is the thanks we get? Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer called the news a gut punch to American workers in politically critical states like Ohio and Michigan.
Guess where President Trump promised the people we won't lose one auto plant? Warren, Michigan. And that is where one of the plants is now slated to close.
GM explains the move as necessary to position the company for long-term success and maintain and grow American jobs, adding that many of the U.S. workers impacted by these actions will have the opportunity to shift to other GM plants. The statement did not mention the Trump administration's tariffs on Chinese steel and aluminum, but GM recently reported that they would cost the company about $1 billion this year. Now President Trump is preparing to take his threat of even more tariffs in his trade war with China to the G20 summit in Argentina, where he'll go head-to-head with the Chinese president, Xi Jinping. It will be the first time that the two have met since the trade war started, and the world would love to see a ceasefire between the world's two biggest economies. Today, the president's top economic advisor said it's possible.
He is open to that. He is open to that. But having said that, some caveats, as always. Certain conditions have to be met with respect to fairness and reciprocity.
And if those conditions are not met, Kudlow says the U.S. is prepared to slap China with an additional $267 billion worth of tariffs on goods that are not already subjected to these existing tariffs. And that could possibly include even Apple products. Shannon?
All right, that get a lot of folks' attention. Kristen Fisher, thank you very much. Well, the collapse of former Trump campaign chairman Paul Manafort's plea deal thrusting him back into the spotlight. Tonight, the president's again calling special counsel Robert Mueller's investigation a phony witch hunt waged by what he calls a gang of angry Dems. On Capitol Hill, Republican Senator Jeff Flake wants to protect Mueller, and he's trying to force the Republican leadership to bring a vote on that, or he says he's going to continue to block the cornerstone of the Trump presidency, which is the confirmation of conservative judges. Here's senior Capitol Hill producer Chad Pergram.
Republican Arizona Senator Jeff Flake wants his colleagues to inoculate Robert Mueller from presidential interference.
I ask unanimous consent.
Flake needed the blessing of all 100 senators to consider his bill to protect Mueller, but Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell blocked Flake.
Majority Leader, objection is heard.
Flake says he'll try the same tactic again on Wednesday Better luck this time?
I don't know. I know that they've been trying to see if the votes are there for it. So we'll see.
McConnell isn't concerned about Mueller's future. He doubts the president would fire the special counsel.
This is a solution in search of a problem.
What you did and object if they ask unanimous consent to bring that bill to the floor tomorrow like they did?
I probably would, yeah.
Flake won't back President Trump's judicial nominees unless his Mueller bill gets a vote. Republican gained Senate seats in January, but now there are only 51 Senate Republicans. One defection by Flake makes it harder to get nominees out of committee and confirm them on the floor. A key test vote for Flake comes as early as tomorrow, with a procedural vote on President Trump's nominee for the federal bench in eastern North Carolina. Judge Thomas Farr has ruled on controversial voting laws, earning him the ire of Democrats, including Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer. There's also an effort to Velcro the Mueller protection bill onto a measure to avoid a partial government shutdown next week over the president's border rule.
I didn't know Robert Mueller needed protection. There's nothing out there that, but I do know the southern end of our country needs protection.
Shannon, tonight Republicans are trying to get clarity from Flake about this stand he's taking on the special counsel.
Ted Program, thank you very much. Senator Ben Sasse is a key member of the Senate Judiciary Committee looking at this issue regarding protecting the special counsel and confirming judicial nominees. He's also been keeping a close watch on White House trade policies. Senator Sasse joins us now for more on our top two. Senator, great to have you with us.
Good to be with you, Shannon. Thanks.
Okay, so let's start because tomorrow you've got a hearing on a nominee that's generating some controversy. In the meantime, your GOP colleague, Senator Jeff Flake, says not voting on any judicial nominees until there's a vote on this measure that would protect the special counsel. And tonight, the Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell says it's in search of a problem that doesn't exist. The president's not going to let him go. Where do you stand?
I think there are three big buckets of issues you just named. Judicial nominees between now and the end of the year, judicial nominees that haven't yet gone through committee, and the special counsel issue. So one of the things that President Trump has done a phenomenal job on is he's picked some really great judges. I think in the coalition that he put together in the 2016 election, a bunch of people were excited about the way he built a list about Supreme Court nominees and the kinds of judges he pledged to nominate, and he's done that. And we on the Judiciary Committee have set an all-time record at confirming circuit court judges over the last 2 years. I think we have 31 pending judges on the floor. So I think Senator Flake's threat/bargain doesn't touch those 31, and so we have a lot of votes pent up that we need to have happen over November, December. Then there are a bunch of judges that we're still trying to get through the Judiciary Committee. Chairman Grassley, our outgoing chairman, who's going to head over to Finance, would still like to move a lot, and a number of us would like to move a lot. And then there's the special counsel protection bill. I think that Bob Mueller's work is important and needs to be protected, but I don't think there's going to be a vote on that piece of legislation between now and the end of the year. There's just a lot on the calendar.
You think there should be?
It's not going to get through the House. So one of the most valuable limited resources in Washington, D.C. is Senate floor time. And so Leader McConnell is very rarely willing to spend Senate floor time on something that's not going to become law, and I don't think there's going to be any vote in the House.
Okay, so let's talk about now GM, this announcement about closing some plants, potentially 15,000 jobs in the mix, although they say many of these people could be transferred to other plants if that's what they choose to do. The president obviously not very happy, tweeting today about possibly taking subsidies away from them, although I believe that would require some congressional action to get that done. The truth is GM got a $51 billion taxpayer-funded, at least in part, bailout. Is it fair to say that they have some obligation to the American worker?
Well, first of all, let's just say to those 15,000 families, this is a tragic week. This is a rough set of news for people to receive, and so I think we want to grieve with those families. In addition, the long-term competitiveness of the auto industry is driven by, can you build higher quality, lower cost products than a lot of our competitors? And there are a whole bunch of inputs to that equation. And the number one thing that's happening in the automotive industry is more and more technology is automating processes. And over time, you're probably going to build cars with fewer labor inputs. And so there's a long-term trend here in the automotive industry that we're going to have to think about the future of work and future of labor stuff. In addition, the steel tariffs aren't helping. I've talked to auto industry insiders and executives over the course of the last 2 or 3 days, and clearly the steel tariffs have big negative consequences if you're trying to work in a car
What about
company.
the president's assertion that it's about the Fed? Their interest rates going up and other policies that he says are hurting his ability to try to do things to help American workers.
Yeah, I don't see that connection. The long-term pressures on interest rates are things like U.S. overspending and the fact that we're not building toward balanced budgets over the long term. That is probably the wrong bad guy for this equation.
Okay, a couple lightning round things I want to make sure we get to. Jesse Kelly, Twitter says he's back, and he's somebody that you said, listen, I don't always agree with this guy.
I think he despises me, so I think it's more than just
maybe it's both ways.
Yeah.
But you say the answer to offensive speech potentially is not less speech, it's more.
Yeah, so a couple distinctions are really important. One, Twitter is a private company, they're not the government, and so the First Amendment is a prohibition on government restriction of speech or religious liberty or association. And yet, the First Amendment is the beating heart of American life and American society. And when you encounter people that you don't agree with, usually the right answer is to talk to them longer and try to persuade them, listen to their neighbor, and engage different kinds of arguments. And so right now, when we hear speech, when Americans are encountering speech they don't like on a college campus or on social media, they're acting like the first instinct is to shut people down or shut them down or deplatform them. That's a bad trend in American life. We need to embrace more vigorous debate. That's the American way to handle disputes.
Yeah, and when it involves the government, the Supreme Court is almost always unanimously on the side of free speech and the First Amendment. I want to ask you, though, about some poll results. These are informal. They're in the internet. It has to do with millennials, people 38 and under. But I was a little disturbed, and I imagine you would be, too. Half of those surveys believe the U.S. is sexist and racist. 1 in 8 millennials agree that Americans 84% of Americans can't even enumerate the rights enumerated in the First Amendment.
We're doing a bad job at teaching civics. It's hard, in Ben Franklin's words, for a republic to be maintained if we don't pass along to the next generation an understanding of who we are and what we believe. America has limited government because government is about power. Government is about coercion. And most of the interesting things in life are about neighborliness. They're about love. They're about persuasion. And so the center of the world for Americans is supposed to be all the cities and towns and neighborhoods where your viewers are living, not Washington, D.C. Washington, D.C. is supposed to be a place that is public servants maintaining a framework for ordered liberty, but that means our people need to know the freedom of speech, press, religion, assembly, protest. And if the next generation doesn't know it, the republic's in some danger. We need to do a lot better civics than we're doing.
Yeah, and that's a nonpartisan issue. We can all agree on, hopefully. Senator, thank you for your time. Good to see you.
Thanks for the invite.
All right, America's longest war claims 3 more lives as the Taliban's investigation into alleged collusion between the Trump campaign and Russia during the presidential election. Well, tonight, correspondent Garrett Tenney has the very latest on Manafort and on author Jerome Corsi dealing with new allegations involving WikiLeaks.
Tonight, prosecutors reportedly believe author Jerome Corsi tipped off Republican strategist Roger Stone months before WikiLeaks released thousands of emails stolen from Hillary Clinton's campaign. That's according to a document drafted as part of a plea offer to Jerome Corsi obtained by the Washington Post. The document quotes Corsi as saying, "A friend in embassy plans 2 more dumps." He added that the impact of the release was planned to be very damaging. WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange has been living in the Ecuadorian embassy in London since 2012. Corsi said he's rejected the offer to plead guilty to a false statements charge. He says he didn't knowingly mislead investigators.
This is a political witch hunt because I did not have a contact with Assange, but yet I figured out that Assange had connected emails. I figured out
Tonight, though, the president's attorney, Rudy Giuliani, didn't rule out the possibility of a pardon, telling the Wall Street Journal right now would not be the time, but he added Manafort should get the same consideration as anyone else. Saying that it's close to over.
Former Deputy Assistant Attorney General Harry Litman Fox News contributor Guy Benson and former Deputy Assistant Attorney General Tom Dupree. Gentlemen, welcome to all of you.
Hey, Shannon.
Okay, so let's start with Jerome Corsi first. I mean, there is a document online that's supposed to be what they were working on, allegedly drafting before this plea deal with the Mueller team fell apart. It references people not by name, but it would seem to suggest we're talking about WikiLeaks and Corsi says he's not going to agree to this because he's not going to lie. Where do we go from here?
Well, first, I kind of doubt that. He's a fabulous from way back. I think it's more likely that Mueller doubted his. Corsi's coding. Corsi himself was saying he forgot about this until this new evidence came out. But where do we go from here? Potentially, he forces Mueller to an indictment of both him and Stone. From Corsi to get him to cooperate against Stone. Now there's the prospect of a trial involving the program.
All right, Tom, do you think that these two gentlemen end up getting indicted, getting in serious trouble? Do you think it will be a process crime, or do you think that they're going to get in trouble on substance? Because most of what we've seen from the Mueller team has been people who said something, wanted to change their statement, or said something else, that they lied to federal agents.
Yeah, I tend to think it would be more of a process foul here, Shannon. I mean, look, the fact is Mueller and his team have been talking to these people for a long time. When the Mueller people talk to you, they ask a lot of questions, and you have to be absolutely precise in your answer. It wouldn't totally shock me if over the course of these interviews, they said something that the Mueller team now thinks they could use as ammunition to get a plea to a false statement charge. We've seen many cases where they don't go the substantive route because they think that might be a too difficult case to prove, but they wind up getting a plea to a false statement or something along those lines. Wouldn't surprise me if that's how this plays out.
Okay, Guy, today from TheHill.com, the headline is, Manafort plea decision represents setback for Mueller. Goes on to say, quote, the decision to call him out as a liar effectively takes his testimony off the table, removing a valuable asset for the government. The Mueller team now saying, listen, the guy is lying to us. So let's go ahead and sentence him. He's not cooperating with us. But by identifying him as a liar, does it take away scrutiny on him as a potential witness against the president or the campaign?
Yeah, definitely. If he was going to be called in a trial, all the defense would have to say is, look, the prosecution, Mueller's own team said this guy's a liar. Only didn't lie to them repeatedly. After they made the plea deal, he kept lying to them and put all this other stuff in jeopardy. He's reckless. He doesn't tell the truth. And they do that. They're well aware of this. And yet they still move forward anyway with this very public shaming, basically, for all of this plea deal. They reached Manafort.
Solid that the Russian attempt to meddle with the election has now come to American shores. It seems there's pretty strong reason to believe that. Don't know, but this seemed explosive when it came out. The Guardian walked it back slightly. It's a little bit puzzling how it's left because it's so straightforward to either prove it or not. The fact that Manafort denies it, though, at this point, I don't think tells us much. He is, as Tom just said, a pretty dishonest fellow.
Well, he has been absolutely unequivocal with his denial, as have Corsi and Stone. So we'll see how that plays out. Tom, I want to ask you about this New York Times report tonight that Mueller's legal team has been talking with Manafort and finding out that Manafort's team has actually been briefing the president's legal team about his conversations with Mueller. Does that strike you as unusual? Nobody's tonight saying it's illegal.
Yeah, it's
I'm sure that the president's legal advisors are very interested in the sorts of questions that Mueller is asking him. So it doesn't shock me that they would be interested in opening that line.
3 xe dàn hàng ngang cho đằng sau cứ thế nối đuôi nhau.
Họ trở thành mãn tính. Nguyên nhân dẫn đến cái chóng mặt. Cái nguyên nhân thứ nhất là gì? Không đủ cung lượng máu cung cấp cho não. Khi đã không đủ cung cấp các cái cung lượng máu cho não, máu cung cấp cho não thì gì? Cái hệ thống thăng bằng của não bị tổn thương. Cái thứ hai là rất nhiều cái bệnh tật khác nó dẫn đến một cái chóng mặt. Tự chung lại là gì? Thứ nhất là giảm cung lượng máu đến não. Cái thứ hai là do những cái bệnh lý khác nó dẫn đến, ta phải tìm nguyên nào dẫn đến hoa mắt chóng mặt. Và trong cái vấn đề mà thiếu máu não thì ta có thể dùng một số các thuốc, những cái thuốc ví dụ như thuốc hoạt huyết thế hệ 2 có thể dùng. Những thuốc này thì phải được đảm bảo tiêu chuẩn GMP của thế giới, được Bộ Y tế xác nhận là cho phép dùng, nó có hiệu quả. Chúng ta cần chọn được thuốc nào cho nó tốt đối với chúng ta.
Rất may là từ ngàn năm
citing concern for their children's safety, bought their own lock and chain to shut the gates, putting up a sign saying the school would remain closed until further notice. One parent says this has been building for a while. Watch.
It's not something that happened today. It didn't happen yesterday. It didn't happen this week. It happened the day they arrived. We had an altercation with them. They began to push the back door, asking children for money. They wanted to use the restroom. We are spared from their situation, but it affects us.
Other parents want the migrants relocated, but tonight our crews on the ground captured video of hundreds more arriving in Tijuana from other caravans, and thousands of additional migrants are expected in the coming days. Even the migrants themselves agree that what happened on Sunday hurt their chances of gaining asylum in the U.S. And now many are considering their options to either go back to Central America or take the asylum offer from Mexico. President Trump has also warned that if the migrants try to rush the border again, he would shut the ports eventually, and that hurts the U.S. and Mexican economies. Shannon.
All right, Trace Gallagher, thank you very much. Big win for private property owners in Louisiana today. The U.S. Supreme Court is ordering a lower court to take a new look at a federal agency's designation of Louisiana timberland as a critical habitat for an endangered frog, found only in Mississippi. The decision, by the way, was unanimous. The case involves a 1,500-acre tract, but writing for the court.
Hello, Insiders. Today we're back with Meg, our SPM buddy, who's going to do another deep dive for us. But before we get into everything, if you guys like Creator Insider, please.
Well, Russia and Ukraine pointing fingers at each other tonight as Russia seizes 3 Ukrainian ships and holds on to 24 of its sailors. At this moment, there are new fears the tensions could escalate into an actual all-out war. The Ukrainian president is warning of a, quote, full-scale war. Here at home, there are now suggestions that the U.S. send our Navy to the Sea of Azov, the scene of the confrontation between the two countries. Let's discuss it with retired 4-star General, Fox News senior strategic analyst, General Jack Keane. Great to have you with us always, General.
Good to be here, Shannon.
Okay, so let's talk about this. Today, the Ukrainian president said this. He's quoted as saying, I don't want anyone to think this is fun and games. Ukraine is under threat of full-scale war with Russia. This is not to be taken lightly.
Well, he's facing an election coming up in 2019, and it's a tough election, and he may, in fact, lose it. I'm not suggesting that he's overstating this situation, but I don't think there's the likelihood of a war between Russia and Ukraine, because Russia does not want that. Their economy is struggling. Putin's favorability ratings are at the lowest since this war began 5 years ago. He's got huge problems at home, and the people are getting tired of the troop deployments and the drip, drip, drip of casualties that are happening. So the war is in a different framework in Russia now than what it was when they seized Crimea and his ratings went sky high.
The Wall Street Journal editorial board wrote this: Mr. Trump criticized Barack Obama for tolerating Mr. Putin's seizure of Crimea. But now the Russian is testing Mr. Trump. The Americans should make clear during the G20 summit this week that such aggression will be met with more arms sales to Ukraine and tougher sanctions on Russia. The Kremlin strongmen will be watching for signs of weakness.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, I don't even think we should meet with Putin based on this incident. And that's a way of putting the marker down and tell them we're not going to meet unless you release the sailors and release the crew. I mean, release the ships back to Ukraine. It's not your property. Secondly, totally agree on sanctions. I think we should do that in concert with the Europeans, and likely we will. I would make an announcement very quickly because the White House has been considering it for weeks, and that is more lethal aid to the Ukrainians. We're giving them an anti-tank weapon called the Javelin. And we've got some other toys, so to speak, to pass on to them. And I would also think about going into the Black Sea with France and probably the UK and possibly Germany. Not a lot of ships, ships. Every once in a while to show the Russians that we're not going to be pushed around here, and also to prop up the Ukrainian political and moral will.
Also, we have this terrible news out of Afghanistan that a roadside bomb killed 3 of our U.S. service members, several others injured, we think at least 3. Senator Elizabeth Warren, a Democrat, tweeting this. She says 3 U.S. service members were killed in Afghanistan today. As we grieve with their families, we must ask, how many more must die for us to realize that no amount of U.S. military power will fix Afghanistan? We've been at war for 17 years. It's time to bring our troops home. The president, you know, throughout his campaigning and even as president, has expressed a lot of worry and hesitation.
Well, it is true. I mean, it's very frustrating, 17 years. I won't go through the whole history of it, but we squandered so many opportunities to turn this around. During the Bush administration, we went to war in Iraq, and Afghanistan became a secondary effort. Obama never put the full effort in the generals had recommended, and then he pulled all the troops out. All that said, the Trump team, I think what they're trying to do, without stating it, what they're doing is they've upped the ante a little bit in terms of the number of troops there to help train the Afghan security forces. But what they principally said is, they say we're going to stay unconditionally. That never existed during the Obama administration. And they're saying that because they want the Taliban to recognize there's resolve here, and they want to force the Taliban to come to the table and discuss a political solution. That is really their strategy. Now, whether that will work or not remains to be seen. The Taliban has tremendous patience. It's been 17 years since they ran the country, and I think they're willing to sort of wait us out here.
All right, we'll see. General, thank you very much.
Yeah, it's good talking to you, Shannon.
We're in a new battle over religious freedom and LGBT rights in Arizona. 2 Christian artists say they've been ordered to create artwork for same-sex weddings and face jail time if they publicly speak out about their decision not to do those services. Those artists are here live to discuss the case.